You know, my prayer today, my desire is to be able to help your spirituality become more natural. Is to help my own spirituality. Really, I can't help you. I have to really be where I need to be. And each of us can say that to ourselves. We are really the creators, the co-creators of the world that we live in. We really are. Jesus talks about that. The Apostle Paul mentions that. So often we're thinking things are coincidental. We talked about that last week, by accident, but they're is a mathematical term of two angles that fit perfectly together, and they coincide. So it's a perfect working together. In order for that to happen, you and I have to get used to living in the Spirit, living from our spirit, which is where we came from. God is Spirit. That light represents God. It's not really. God is not a form, as He told Moses in the Old Testament. The I am that I am is the one who you would tell them has sent you. In other words, there's no form. However, in religion, we get caught up in forms, and forms have become very vital to us. Our buildings, our days of the week, our liturgies, what we do in a church service. All of these are but forms. The limitless God. Can God be put into a form? That form could represent God. It could be an aspect of God, but is there any way it could contain all that God is? So even though this is a globe, it's representative of this source, our Creator, God, the designer of all, the divine intelligence, whatever words that people will give that. We all the formless God, formless. And all that is, all the material, your bodies, all that we see, this building came out of that. But in everything that is, there is Spirit. But and we're going to look at Jesus. We're going to look at some of the things that the Apostle Paul said as we kind of get adjusted. I think that's the right word. Getting adjusted to living out of our spirit rather than our ego or that attachment to the form. Ego is much more than someone who makes boastful statements or pride. When we talk about ego, that's usually but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is an attachment to form, an attachment to our body, an attachment to our name, an attachment to the limitations and the boundaries that we're aware of. But in each of us, there is Spirit. We are Spirit. So we're going to think about, where are you from? Where are you from? Well, if you would ask me, Jeff, where are you from? I would say, well, I'm from West Virginia. That's my ego answer. That's my attachment to my background. That's the attachment to this journey in this body. But that is not where I came from. Where I came from is there. Where every one of you came from. Now, I think I could kind of, the most southern, the bottom of the screen, just where West Virginia and Virginia come together, Bluefield. Now, Sheila, I think you're up there. Where are you at on there, Sheila? You're on there too, aren't you? Parkersburg. She's up on the left. But anyway, West Virginia. A few interesting facts, just while we're, as your travel guide, I'll kind of give you interesting. West Virginia is the only state in the United States where the entire state is in the Appalachian Mountains. All the other states that the Appalachian Mountains run through, portions of the state. And also interesting fact, the city that I grew up in, Bluefield, West Virginia, any time that it hits 90 degrees, the town serves lemonade free to everyone because it never gets that warm. So anytime it's 90 degrees, everybody gets lemonade. Another interesting fact, the largest city in the state is actually Morgantown Stadium, where West Virginia University is. And on game day, when West Virginia University plays a football game, it actually becomes the largest city in the state, about 63,000. It's the largest city in the state. So it's a very rural area, a very rural setting. I could tell you more about where I'm from, but that's really not where I'm from. This is where I'm from. It's where you're from. It's where all material is from. In Genesis 1, when God begins to create, this is what it was like before there was form. The Scripture describes it as there was a void, and that word void can appear to be, and that word emptiness can appear to be nothingness. But really, if I were to tell you that you are nothing, that really would be correct, except you need to put a hyphen there. You are no thing. You are not form. You are spirit. Quantum physics now is proving that beyond all material, beyond all form, there is such a minute, beyond the atom. You know, it's interesting. The greatest power in the universe, to our knowledge today, has been discovered in the atom. The smallest, minute thing can produce, if they are vibrated, can produce the most amazing, it could actually destroy the world. The potential of an atom bomb, a nuclear bomb. However, it's used for good. We have nuclear plants all over our world today that are using the atom. So science is proving that beyond the material, there is just kind of empty space. But it's not empty, it's spirit. Beyond this body, there is intelligence, there is intentionality. Before God formed, there was the thought, and there was intention. God was intending to create. So it's not that there's nothing. Sometimes we refer to nothing. Really, nothing is spirit, but it's not no thing, nothing. It's still God, and its intelligence, and its depth, and its meaning. So where are you from? When you think about it, you are from spirit. You are of spirit. Now, so when we in religion and we talk about, I want to live and the Holy Spirit lives in me, the truth is you've always had spirit. You've just really not maybe known how to live out of it, or how to do the adjustments, because your spirit has been put into a bodily form now. And that's when you came out of your mother's womb. And that tends to be the majority of people's describing of where they came from. But this is where you came from. You came from the Spirit. So if you came from Spirit, then you must be what? It's just logical. If you came, but yet the sole reference that we give to ourselves, we talk about our bodies, and we talk about our families, and we talk about our children. Those are all wonderful things, but even those cannot define who we are. We are beyond form. We were put here with intention even before we became formed. This material body. So doesn't it make sense then? And I kind of changed. I know I put at the bottom here, so it would make sense that there is the possibility of living in the Spirit or in Spirit, and this could be the norm. I changed that word natural. This would be more natural. See, I think that's what we've kind of done in religion. We've just done the norm. The norm would not be the norm, but the norm is based upon what those before us have done, so we're simply repeating. And you know what I read? You know what the word reenactment? What is a reenactment? Is simply reacting, redoing what was already acted, and you're reacting. So you're redoing what's. But God is, I believe, there was a day in the creation of all things, where in Genesis, where things were done for the first time, and God, I think, wants to help us to return to that, where we get to where we do things not out of reaction, but out of creation. Not out of reaction, because we're simply rehashing, recycling what has already been. But to create a Spirit-adjusted life where we live according to the Spirit. See, here's the truth. And here's the truth really for all of us. You are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. It's really what you are, a spiritual being. I mean, you get to think about this. Who just so happens to be in this body. You are not this body, even though this body is an amazing thing of technology and creation and how God designed the body and how amazing that is. But you're you are a spirit having a temporary. So there's an adjustment time. That's why Jesus, we're going to talk about Jesus in just a moment, and how the Scriptures tell us that we refer to how he did enter public ministry until he was around 30 years of age. And really, this begins to make so much sense to me. Because when you start thinking about Jesus, his beginning, what we would call his public ministry, Scripture records, history records that it was about, and we've wondered, there's been debate, why was it 30? Jesus was discovering his human self. He'd never been human. He'd been divine, spirit, with God in the beginning, as God in the beginning. So you get in this body, and he has desires, he has temptation, he has all the things that we hunger, and he's thirsty, and experiences pain and desire and all of these things. So Jesus it makes total sense to me why it wasn't 29 or 15 or maybe, because for Jesus there was a time of adjusting. Yes, Jesus. Adjusting to, how do you feel that he could stand in front of the religious zealots? How he could stand in front of people that would ridicule him and be so mean? No one in our world would disagree Jesus was mistreated amazingly. No one would disagree with that. But the question is, how did he deal with that? Because he mastered himself. He mastered his self. His divine self, his true self, which is really why he came as an example for you and me, to help us to master not necessarily someone else or the world, but who? Yourself, your true self, your spiritual self, to learn how to master, how to live and adjust, make the adjustments necessarily on a daily basis or a person-to-person basis, environment-to-environment basis. The Spirit is ever-changing of how it may respond or how it may move or how it may speak or how it may deal. So He wants, that lives within us, wants to help teach us, just as Jesus did. So He was kind of getting adjusted. My goodness, Jesus had come from a place of pure spirit, and now He was born of a virgin, and He was born into this world in material form. So how do you deal with all of that? It's the same thing you and I are dealing with. Albert Einstein said something very interesting. This quote is amazing. Now you got to so when you're living out of spirit, amazing creation is possible. Amazing adjustments are possible. Albert Einstein was quoted as saying, all I ever wanted to do was think like God thinks. Isn't that beautiful? Here's the guy that discovered, he's the major scientist of our lifetime. And before our lifetime. And what he said is exactly what Paul said. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Jesus. Is there any difference? Is there any difference? Is there any difference? Starting to train this body to listen to the Spirit instead of vice versa. Instead of this Spirit listening, the Spirit listens way too much to the body. The body is important and the body is vital, but the Spirit listens way too much to even the feelings or the emotions of the body. Those are real and they exist, but I believe what Paul is trying to say to us, as well as even a modern contemporary Albert Einstein in the science field, is we want to start thinking, we want to start exhibiting and creating a life that God would create. Because now we are from Him. This is what the world needs, and this is what people that we're around need. As we think about, I can't get beyond that. All I ever wanted, this is a guy that discovered MC Square, discovered all that he did He said, all I ever wanted to do. Now, Albert Einstein was rejected by most religious organizations. He was a Jew. He was kind of looked upon as if he wasn't a very religious man, or wasn't a spiritual man, I should say. But he was very much a spiritual man. He said, I just want to think like... So when you think like God thinks, you find answers. You find solutions. I know I went just this past week, I was looking for a kind of a personal gift to get myself with some money I'd received for Christmas, and I was looking at some various kinds of bird houses and getting ready for spring and thinking about what it would be like when I get another... I've been fascinated by that type of thing. And I found the Secret Shed, which is in kind of in Cherville, St. John area. And I met a couple who have the shed by their home, and they have a little business in the shed, and it's nothing but birdhouses and things, ornaments for your outdoors. And the guy said, the man, the owner, said this to me. He says, I don't like to think about problems. I just like to think about the solutions to problems. And I said, I like your attitude. I said, I like your outlook on life. See, when the Spirit looks for solutions, the ego fights problems, tries to fix problems. The Spirit finds creative solutions to problems, finds ways to build bridges to people, finds ways to do that. You know, I said something last Sunday that has really stuck with me, and I've said it to a few people this week. And it was one of those things I said in the Spirit, and now that I look back, and that is, I said, could you be in church but not be in spirit? Could you be reading the Bible and not be in spirit? Could you be actually saying a prayer and not be in spirit? I believe absolutely to every one of those. I mean, you think about the Pharisees. They knew the Scriptures frontwards and backwards. Were they in spirit? Absolutely not. They did have spirit, but they hadn't made that adjust. They were caught up in form. They were caught up in the ego. They were caught up in these boundaries, these defining, these definitions that God had been placed in. But was God in? Could God ever be in? So as we think about this, we're going to kind of describe for the next few minutes getting more used to being natural in our spiritual journey, getting used to learning, getting used to being re-energized, getting used to being connected to God in more natural ways than the stuffiness of church or the stuffiness of whatever definition we may put on it. To me, it doesn't have to be stuffy, and I don't think for you it's stuffy, but for some it may be. But Jesus was trying to give us some insight. He said, let the little children come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. He said, so children, he's setting the scene that he's learned. He's saying the kingdom of heaven can be found beyond the religious institution. The kingdom of heaven can be found beyond the Sabbath. The kingdom of heaven can be found in all, because all has come from source, from the Spirit, from things before they became material. So children are representative of that. So watching children, watch them. It can help you better live out of spirit. Watch them close. I know Jeannie was telling me yesterday she went to a birthday party of a 1-year-old, and she sent me an email because we were coordinating getting everything together. Connie's out of town today, so Jeannie's filling in today, and we appreciate Jeannie Dornicek up there filling in for us this morning, especially with these added things. And we were talking, and she said, I'm going to this birthday party, and I said, I said, pretend you're a kid and have a blast. See, now, as an adult, we would say, you got to grow up someday. You got to act like an adult. That's not what we're talking. We're talking about the innocency and the playfulness. Why do we feel that's not living in the Spirit? This is kind of what I feel my passion is to unlock in the minds of people. Why is it we have gotten religiously so attached to certain identifications that when things aren't done that way, we don't feel it's in the Spirit? We don't feel that's spiritual. Oh, he just shows a video at church. That's not spiritual. Oh, he just Says who? Says you or some other person, but that's just their opinion. The Spirit says all has come from Him. That's what Albert Einstein could find inventions beyond religion because he had a freedom to experience God. And he said, all I ever wanted to do was think like God thinks. And that's a statement of humility, not a statement of brashness or harshness. He said, I came here to create. I came here to explore. I came here to be God's representative. And God is thinking through me, feeling through me, working through me, loving through me, existing through me. God is moving through me. But when we're attached, most of my life I was attached to these types of things. And it's almost like God is unattaching me. And these unattachments, I'm not even very comfortable with at first. I'm thinking, gosh. It's like God says, okay, do you want to experience me then? Yes or no? But it seems like every time I have an answer, it's an outdated answer. It's an answer, well, that's what I was taught to do. And it's like God says, well, who's your teacher, they or me? Spirit or form? The Creator? Jesus. So I've got a little video clip for you. Actually, it's about the amazement that we find just in animals. Not only in children, but in animals. If you want to reconnect with Spirit, spend some time around animals. Spend some time watching them. Not narrating them. There's this inner narrator we have within, but just watching it. This amazing video clip I saw for some of you. Anybody got cats in here? Does anybody have cats? Oh, many. Well, you'll appreciate this, how they intimidate dogs. Now, I have a dog. I don't have a cat. But I just want you to think, just watch it. Let your spirit enjoy it. And then ask yourself, as you watch, ask yourself, why would this not be spiritual? Watch this. Put a smile on your face to lighten your spirit. You know, how many knows we live in a heavy world? And we live in a world where, you know, we've got situations to deal with. And to be able to reconnect with our spirit, we need to find ways to do that, don't we? And we need to find ways to do that daily. Whether it's an animal, whether it's a child. I mean, think about it. Why would anyone feel that something like this is not a spiritual... See, religion, is religion so defined for us what a spiritual activity is or isn't that we don't feel spiritual unless we're doing those things. And when we're not doing those things, we don't feel spiritual. And then we have to have long periods of time where we do those things. When in reality, maybe what Jesus is teaching us and maybe what Scripture is trying to say is I want you to be able to reconnect with Spirit on a daily basis and live out of your spirit. Live out of the Holy Spirit that lives within you. In the world of spirit from whence we came, the world of spirit. So watch this. If you live out of the Spirit, and if you become attached to the world of spirit, there are no deficits, lacks, or shortages. Think of it. When you're living out of spirit, before form, in the world of spirit, there are no deficits. So when we're talking about deficits, we're living out of our ego. When we're talking about shortages, we're living out of... we end up almost even praying prayers out of our ego, out of our attachment to form, our attachment to these things. When in reality, God wants to help us. Out of spirit, we become creators. Out of spirit, we become the answers to our own prayers. Out of spirit, other people become the answers. Nature, God, animals become the answers for our comfort, for our help, for the things that we're actually praying for. When you live out of spirit, there's no such thing as purposelessness. There's really no event you could do. When you're living out of spirit, you are. And when you are, everything has purpose. Well, I'm just going to that job today, or I just got to go take care of that errand. Well, I got to go run and pick up the groceries. No, everything, when you're living in spirit, everything becomes purposeful. everything becomes your mission. Everything becomes your calling. Everything becomes a way of reconnecting with Spirit, a way of finding God everywhere around you. Awesome. One who lives out of Spirit, this is what you're thinking. What is needed is on its way. Because you came from Spirit and the Spirit lives in you. So if you're living out of Spirit, the Spirit is in anticipation that whatever you're in need of is on its way. The money's on its way. The help's on its way. The healing is on its way. The health is on its way. As I'm reconnecting with these things, I'm feeling better. As I'm reconnecting with Spirit, I'm getting answers. I'm finding guidance. I'm finding direction. It's just becoming intuitively. I kind of sense that I know what I need to do. And what is needed just becomes something that's... So when you get energized, think about Jesus. Jesus, what we would call the first miracle that He did in Scriptures is He went to a celebration. He did not go to the temple or the tabernacle. He did not heal anyone. He went to, as far as physically, He went to a wedding where He actually participated in helping the wedding to maintain a spirit of celebration. And He turned water into wine. Would Jesus care about celebration? Absolutely. A lot of Jesus' stories that you'll read about, He spent time eating with the Pharisees. He ate with other people. He spent time having meals with them. His spirituality went beyond the building. It went beyond the tabernacle or the temple. It went beyond a form. There wasn't a time when it wasn't. I'm really believing that's one of the reasons Jesus spent a lot of time alone. Because people just didn't get it. They're caught up in the drama of the ego, the drama of the flesh. See, we would call the ego the flesh. But I think a better term to use is that this attachment to the physical, to the material. So Jesus was very much interested in these things. So start asking yourself, what is it that helps me get back in the Spirit? What helps me to get into a sweeter spirit? Into a less burdensome mood? What helps me to get not so hyperactive and helps me to slow down? What helps me to get into the spirit where my work isn't even work anymore, it becomes play. Your work becomes play. Your work becomes a part of living out of Spirit. Yeah, Pastor, if I just didn't have to interact with any jerks on a daily basis, I'd be okay. See, we're all dealing with this adjustment. The ego would want to just launch back at them, but when we live out of Spirit, we start learning how to do this. And we learn from all things. There isn't anything. This next video we were going to use last Sunday. We didn't get to use it, but this message today is filled with creativity, ideas for you to think about how you can be energized. A cat in a box. Pretty simple to me. A cat has to find a way to fit into the box. Watch this. See, when you're bored or you think life is just not going your way, find something to change the moment and get back in the spirit of lightheartedness and gratefulness and grace and goodness and beauty and love. Man, our world is filled with opportunities to be able to see these things. I read this quote. I got my wife a book for Christmas, and that book is The Things That You Can Learn Spiritually from Your Animals. And this quote about dogs says, dogs offer the precious opportunity, even to people who are trapped in their egos, of loving and being unconditionally loved. Isn't that something? God uses all things because they came from there. They came from there. It's been recorded in spiritual history, a richness of people that just simply get alone in nature and they see creation and they're drawn close to God. Jesus went away to be alone. John the Baptist spent much time in the wilderness, not just baptizing, just to be alone with the Spirit and to renew himself in the Spirit. So how do you live in the Spirit and hear the voice of inspiration even when we're doing absolutely nothing that we call purposeful? That's what we're talking about. Somebody, they're just over there fooling around. No, that is a part of helping you because you're being called to be a creator. You are the creator of your world. Man, I want this world to change. Well, become the creator of a new world. Start being love. Start being hope. Start being forgiving. Let's become the creators. I tell you, my life just is really terrible. Hey, who's to blame for it? Start creating a better world. Start creating a better outlook. Start creating things day by day. You are the creator. God has put you now in a position where He is the creator and now you are His extension and you're creating a world. So this is what is your homework this week. Everywhere you go, send only love. Don't seek to find imperfections where you go. Oh, that line is so long. That person, do you see the way they look today? They just seem to be pretty grumpy. Can you believe they believe in God and they look that way? Don't seek to find imperfections in any of God's children. You know, if you wanted to, you can find you a laundry list of judgments you could make about so many different kinds of people. You don't know what they did to that person. You don't know how they mistreated their kids. You don't know what they did to them. This week, only send out love. Just be a being of love. And just practice that this week. I'm not going to send out judgment. I'm not going to... See, the ego, it wants to judge. It looks at form. It makes evaluations. It looks at things frontwards and backwards. It slices and dices. It puts things into parts and pieces. It separates and divides. But love, maybe that's why Paul said, the greatest of these in 1 Corinthians 13 is love. Love never fails. Well, in conclusion this morning, one final video. You got to stand to this one. Everyone stand with me. This will warm you up. You got to jump. Sometimes you just got to jump around a little bit, you know. So we've got some animals that they found their way on the trampolines, and you're going to get to see a little bit what they enjoyed. Maybe all it will take for you is just to jump around a little bit, just to get the juices flowing, to get going, to get you in a sense of the Spirit. See, can I give you one judgment that my ego makes right now? One judgment my ego makes is this right now. This doesn't seem very religious, Jeff. What you're going to show them jumping up and down. What they just saw, a cat going into a box. See, that's my prior training and conditioning that has taught me that. Because what is unspiritual? So who can identify what a spiritual gathering should look like? And why is it when there's something we introduce here, someone doesn't like it? Why should that even really matter? Because it's not about the form. It's about helping you. You may not realize this, but we're trying everything within our power to help you to connect with the Spirit every day of your life. And some of the very things you may think, I'm not sure about that, may be the very things you need to see to get you out of this. So you can start living more naturally, being your true self wherever you are. So maybe it's jumping on a trampoline. We're going to show you this video. I think you'll enjoy it. Watch this. Be careful and look wherever you go. You're going to find ways to be inspired and to get back in spirit, feel connected to God, and know that you are spirit because He is spirit. God bless you. Have a great day and stay warm.